I decided to take a solo camping trip last summer. I wanted to escape my screen-filled life. I thought I just needed some peace in nature. I was a little nervous, but I figured I'd be okay. I had camped a few times before. Setting up my tent by a quiet lake felt perfect. The air was fresh, and I could hear birds chirping. I thought I would recharge. That night I settled down by the fire. It was calm outside. The moon was bright and everything seemed peaceful. But then I heard it. A rustle coming from the bushes nearby. I thought it might be a deer. I tried to ignore it, but the noise felt like it was moving closer. My heart started racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. Around midnight I heard another sound. Footsteps, maybe. I wasn't sure. The fire crackled and I felt cold. It was like the forest had silenced itself. I felt uncomfortable, like the shadows were closing in. I wanted to dismiss it, but my gut said otherwise. Something was off. The next few days were strange too. I noticed odd arrangements of stones around my campsite. They formed patterns I couldn't explain. It was all too weird. Who would do that? Maybe local wildlife. Or maybe someone else was camping nearby. But I never saw anyone else. I felt like something was watching me, teasing me in the dark. I kept glancing at the edge of the trees, expecting to see eyes staring back at me. I didn't sleep well. The murmurs started on the third night. They were low, almost whispers. I woke up confused, heart pounding. I wanted to think it was my imagination, but I knew it wasn't. I slipped out of my sleeping bag, trying to find the source. Everything was still. Cold sweat dripped down my back. I saw shadows flicker, darting between the trees. I thought I saw a figure, but it vanished before I could focus on it. Then it happened on the last night. I was sitting by the fire, feeling anxious. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was out there. I turned around and there he was. He looked human, but his eyes were hollow. I opened my mouth to ask if he was okay, but he stared at me without answering. Then he asked, "Why are you here?" Just then, the chill crawled up my spine. I turned around and nobody was behind me. I felt the crunch of leaves beneath my feet but heard nothing else. I could barely breathe. What was happening? I turned back to the man, but he was gone. I never saw him leave. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy. I felt trapped, like I was being pulled into the shadows. I didn't sleep at all after that. Now, I'm back in Atlanta. I can't shake the feeling that something followed me home. Little things have changed. I see flickers in the corner of my eye. I hear whispers when it's quiet. I don't think I'll ever go camping again. I'm not sure what was in those woods, but I know it's not finished with me. I tried to get back to my routine after the trip, but it was hard. My mind kept drifting back to the woods. I avoided looking out the windows, afraid I'd see something lurking outside. Even in my own home, I felt restless. The whispers hadn't stopped. They came to me like haunting memories, echoing just beneath the surface when I was alone. One evening, as I sat on the couch, I noticed shadows moving in the hallway. I convinced myself it was just the light playing tricks. But then I heard a knock, soft but deliberate, coming from the front door. My heart raced. It was too late for visitors. I stood frozen, half expecting to see that man from the forest. I approached the door hesitantly and peeked through the peephole. Nothing, just darkness outside. I took a breath, trying to calm myself. Maybe it was just the wind. I opened the door slightly, feeling a chill brush past me. Nothing. I stepped outside, scanning the darkened yard. The streetlight flickered, creating more shadows. I wanted to step back inside, but something compelled me to take a few steps into my yard. That's when I noticed them. Small piles of rocks arranged just like in the forest. My stomach twisted. I knelt down and touched the stones. The arrangement felt wrong. They were too deliberate, too unnerving. I scrambled back to my feet, glancing around as panic surged in me. Were they just playing tricks on me? I turned to head back inside when I saw a flash of movement out of the corner of my eye. A figure stood at the far edge of my yard. For a split second I thought it was the man again, but when I turned fully, nothing was there. I trembled as I hurried back indoors, locking the door behind me. I tried to distract myself with TV, but my mind replayed those moments over and over. I could hardly focus on what I was watching. I decided to look up the camping site I had visited online. Maybe I could find some answers. Typing in the name of the site, I stumbled across a forum where others shared their experiences. I felt an uneasy knot form in my stomach. Many reported strange occurrences, whispers, shadows, and even sightings of a haunting figure. A few people discussed an old legend about the woods, a spirit that sought company after dark. Their stories matched what I had experienced. Then I found a post at the very bottom of the thread. "No one ever comes back the same," it read. I shivered, realizing I had become one of them. Just then, my phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number flashed on the screen. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened it and felt ice run through my veins. The message simply read, "You can't escape." I glanced around my living room, heart pounding, afraid of what I might see. I needed to find out what was happening, but dread filled me. I felt like I was being pulled back into that darkness. Maybe the woods weren't done with me after all. The next morning, I woke up feeling exhausted. I barely slept, every creak of my house echoing in my mind. After my conversation with the darkness outside, I needed to gather my thoughts. I made a plan to visit the local library. I hoped to find more information about the woods and whatever was haunting me. The sun felt too bright as I drove through familiar streets. The library was small, but I remembered it had a section about local folklore. I parked my car and stepped inside, greeted by the musty smell of old books. I moved to the back, where I found a few shelves dedicated to the area's legends. I scanned the titles, searching for anything that would explain what I had experienced. Most of the books were old and dusty, but one caught my eye. It was a thin volume with a worn cover titled Wraiths of Blue Ridge. I pulled it out and sat at a nearby table. As I flipped through the pages, I found stories of spirits, lost souls, and disappearances. A particular entry stood out. It described a figure known as the Watcher. According to the legend, the Watcher lived in the woods and took on the form of those who wandered too deep. I could feel my heart rate pick up as I read about how it would whisper to its victims, drawing them closer until they vanished. A man at the next table glanced at me, eyebrows raised. I could feel his curiosity, but I slammed the book shut, unwilling to share my fear. I spent hours searching for anything related to the site I visited, but each click seemed to land me deeper into the rabbit hole of unsettling tales. After scouring the library, I decided I couldn't leave without confronting my fear. The last thing I needed was to hide away. Maybe going back to the site would bring clarity. I needed to see those woods again, face whatever it was that followed me. When I returned home, I briefly considered calling my friend, Sarah. I could tell her everything. But I didn't want to drag anyone else into this mess. I felt alone, isolated in my own thoughts. I gathered a few supplies, a flashlight, and a bottle of water, determined to head back before nightfall. As I drove toward the campsite, doubt began creeping in. My mind filled with images of shadows and whispers, the air feeling thicker with every mile. When I finally reached the entrance to the woods, the sun hung low in the sky, casting eerie shadows across the path. I stepped into the forest, heart pounding in rhythm with each footfall. The familiar sounds of nature surrounded me at first, but gradually they faded into an unsettling silence. I walked deeper into the woods, tracing my steps back to where I last felt the presence of that figure. A sense of dread wrapped around me, but I pushed on, determined. Then I stumbled upon a small clearing and my breath caught in my throat. There, instead of the vague memories of piles of rocks, I found something far worse. That's when I saw it. An arrangement of stones much larger than before. In the center was a circle, and around it, symbols carved into the earth. It felt wrong, almost alive, tinged with an energy that sent chills down my spine. Before I could process it, I heard a voice calling my name. I froze, my heart racing. The voice echoed through the clearing, soft, yet insistent. "Come closer." It was unmistakably someone calling for me, but it felt otherworldly. Panic gripped me, and I instinctively took a step back. The stones loomed ahead, their shapes growing darker against the dying sunlight. I glanced around, hoping to see someone, but the trees loomed as silent guardians. I thought about turning to run, but I couldn't tear my gaze away from the circle. "Please," the voice urged again, undeniably familiar. It sounded like Sarah. A wave of confusion washed over me. Why was she here? How could she be here? The realization that I might be hearing things seized me, but also a small part of me held on to the hope that maybe she had come to help. "Sarah," I called out, my voice trembling. "Is that you?" The shadows danced, and for a moment I thought I saw a figure move just beyond the rocks. My breath quickened, anticipation and fear swirling inside me. But instead of a clear answer, I heard a low whisper that sent chills down my spine. "You shouldn't have come back." The voice looped through my mind, wrapping around my thoughts like a vine tightening its grip. I stumbled back, feeling the cool earth against my legs as I sank onto the ground. In an instant, the air thickened. The familiar rustle of leaves disappeared, replaced by an ominous silence that pressed down on me. I glanced at the stones, the symbols glowing faintly now. They felt like they were alive, pulsing with a dark energy that demanded my attention. I shook my head, willing myself to think clearly. I couldn't let fear dictate my actions. Desperation surged as I pulled myself back to my feet, trying to shake off the sensation of being entwined in something far beyond my understanding. I stepped forward, the shadows closing in around me. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice echoing in the stillness. Suddenly a gust of wind swept through the clearing, stirring the branches above. I felt a chill race down my spine as the stone symbols ignited with a brilliant, cold light. A face emerged within the light, twisted and sorrowful, hauntingly familiar. My eyes widened in terror. It was me. The visage, just a shade darker, stared back with hollow eyes. "Join us," it whispered, a sinister invitation that coiled around me like a vine. The realization hit me. I was becoming a part of this place, a prisoner among the stones. With a surge of adrenaline, I turned and ran, sprinting back through the woods, branches clawing at my clothes and skin. The voice followed me, growing louder. "You cannot escape." Panic filled my lungs, the weight of despair threatening to pull me under as I dashed through the trees. When I finally reached my car, I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking violently. I glanced back at the woods, terrified of what I might still observe. In that moment, dread washed over me. I couldn't unsee what I had just encountered, the shadows still lingering in the corners of my mind. As I sped away from the forest, the weight of fear settled heavily in my chest. I thought I had escaped, but something had changed inside me. The forest felt alive, and I could almost hear it whispering farewell. All I wanted was to get home, but deep down I began to feel that this was far from over. I drove faster than I ever had, the road blurring beneath me. My heart pounded as I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see shadows chasing me. The forest felt like a dark specter, looming behind, ever present. I pulled onto the main highway, but the tension didn't ease. I was still trapped in that mysterious night. When I finally reached home, I stumbled through the door and slammed it shut. I locked every bolt, paranoid those symbols would somehow break through. My hands shook as I leaned against the door, chest heaving. A strange energy hummed, as if the house too was alive. I peeled off my torn jacket and sank onto the couch, breathing heavily. The comforting familiarity of home offered no solace. I grabbed my phone, desperate for a connection, and scrolled through my contacts until I found Sarah's name. My thumb hovered over the call button. What would I say? Hey, I just saw my creepy doppelganger at a stone circle and I need your help. Instead, I decided to text her. I wanted to explain everything but feared the words could unravel any semblance of normalcy that remained. Just as I hit send, a loud thud echoed from the back of the house. My heart leaped into my throat. I froze, staring down the dark hallway leading to the kitchen. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination, a figment of my frayed nerves. But as seconds stretched on, silence settled in thicker than ever. Tentative, I got up, creeping towards the noise. Each step felt like a betrayal to my terror. When I reached the kitchen, I flicked on the light, illuminating the empty space. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, a dull roar that drowned out everything else. I scanned the room for any danger, but it remained still, like a predator waiting patiently. Then my phone chimed. It was Sarah. Are you okay? The message sent shivers through me. How could she know? My fingers trembled as I typed back, I think something followed me back. I can't explain it. I wouldn't have to. Just as I pressed send, the lights flickered above me. My heart sank. Not this again, I whispered to myself as I backed away toward the living room. I felt trapped in a nightmare. There was another noise, this time sharper, a scraping sound. It came from the back door. I didn't want to investigate, but dread pulled me forward. Each step sounded too loud against the quiet, like a drumbeat signaling my impending doom. I reached the door, suddenly feeling foolish for not just sitting tight. With bated breath, I peered through the small window. A figure stood on the porch, shrouded in the darkness. It was too vague to recognize, but something about that outline felt hauntingly familiar. My heart raced anew as I thought about who it could be. The voice returned to my mind. You shouldn't have come back. I recoiled, the cold grip of fear seeping into my bones. I grabbed my phone again, ready to call for help. That's when I saw it. The outline shifted, moving closer. I didn't wait for clarity. I darted back to the living room, my mind racing. Suddenly, my phone went dead. The screen flickered and then nothing. My breath hitched. With no choice left, I rushed toward the front window. The figure was now closer. I could see it, my own shadow staring back. And in that moment I realized the terror wasn't just in the woods. It was inside me. The figure stood there, the outline of my own fear reflected back at me. I blinked, convincing myself it couldn't be true. I had to get a grip. The worst of me couldn't be staring back. It had to be the shadows playing tricks in the dim light. Yet, instinct drove me to the closest weapon. I grabbed the heavy flashlight from the coffee table, feeling its reassuring weight in my palm. I took a deep breath, raised it, and aimed it at the window. The light pierced through the darkness, scattering the shadows momentarily. But when the beam hit the porch, nothing was there. It was empty. My heart sank. I stepped back, my pulse quickening. Had I imagined the figure? Was it a ghost of my panic? I turned off the flashlight, needing to stay quiet, listening for signs of movement outside. Nothing, except the steady rhythm of my heart. Then I heard it again. The back door creaked open. The sound echoed through the house, amplifying my fears. Someone, or something, was inside. I considered bolting for the front door, but I hesitated. Where would I go? The woods? The very place I had fled from? I crept back into the hallway, instincts on high alert. My house felt like a maze, each corner hiding something unknown. From the kitchen I could see a shadow moving. My breath hitched. I couldn't tell if it was being cast by the light of the moon or something else. I steeled myself and took a step forward. "Who's there?" My voice was shaky but loud enough to be heard. Silence answered. I felt a pang of courage, the kind that mingled with foolishness. I had to find out what was happening in my home. I rounded the corner into the kitchen, my flashlight held like a shield. As I entered, the door swung fully open with a creak, but there was no one there. The back porch was deserted, yet the air felt electric, charged with something unseen. I continued down the hallway. My mind raced back to the symbols I had seen at the stone circle. They felt etched into my consciousness now, and I wondered if that darkness was somehow tied to my home. Maybe it was waiting for me, lurking in the spaces where I used to feel safe. Suddenly, I spotted something glinting on the floor. I approached cautiously, the concern tightening in my stomach. It was a pendant, a small silver charm shaped like the same symbol I'd seen in the woods. My pulse quickened as I realized it couldn't belong to me. I hadn't brought anything like this back. The fear became sharp and real. I swiped the charm up, my fingers trembling against the cool metal. I needed answers. Instinctively, I reached for my phone, but it remained blank, the battery well and truly dead. I glanced at the back door, still swinging in the breeze, my flashlight shedding light on the darkness outside. The quiet shifted suddenly. A rustling stirred within the bushes. I braced, gripping the charm tighter, ready for whatever might emerge. Then I heard it, a whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "You're not supposed to be here." My heart raced. I knew I wasn't alone anymore. I could feel the presence edging closer. Whatever was out there or inside me was coming for me. I couldn't shake the whisper, the words hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. My eyes darted around the kitchen, searching for some sign of movement. The shadows shifted again, darker now, as if they were swallowing the light. I backed up against the wall, trembling and breathing hard. I needed to act. My mind fought against the fear. Maybe I could get to the front door, but I had to go past the kitchen again. I glanced at the pendant in my palm. It was too heavy for luck. It felt like a warning. I took another deep breath, gathering all the courage I could. "Who's there?" I choked out again, my voice wavering. No answer, only the hollow sound of my heartbeat. I forced myself to move, slowly edging out of the kitchen, my eyes trained on the front door. That was my exit. If I could just reach it, maybe I could get help. I stepped forward, each footfall feeling like a drumbeat of impending doom. As I neared the door, the whispering returned, louder this time. "You have to leave." My pulse quickened even more, a raw energy coursing through me. It felt like a command, a directive I couldn't ignore. But I needed to know who was speaking and why now. I hesitated, caught in a battle between fear and curiosity. I wanted to run, but I also felt a strange pull to the darkness encircling me. "Show yourself," I shouted, surprising myself. The house was silent, but the air felt charged, as if something was winding into existence. Then I noticed the pendant had begun to warm in my hand. I looked down to see the symbol glowing faintly. My heart raced as I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The shadows seemed to dance, twisting and morphing into shapes that felt too alive. I wanted to throw the charm away, but somehow I couldn't let it go. It was leading me deeper into whatever was happening. Suddenly the whispers changed, morphing into a cacophony of voices. The sound surged through me, a tide of fear and urgency. "You have to understand," they echoed. "It wants you. It—" I stumbled back, nearly bumping into the table. The flashlight flickered, the beam barely illuminating the room anymore. Panic filled my chest. I didn't want to be part of whatever dark narrative was unfolding. I needed to leave. But before I could take another step, the front door swung shut. The sound reverberated through the house like a thunderclap. I turned slowly, the darkness closing in around me. I was cornered. The whispers crescendoed, frantic now and desperate. Find the stone. My mind raced. The stone? I remembered the symbols, the stone circle in the woods. I felt tethered to the very thing I'd tried to escape. The whisper took on a sharper tone. It can protect you. Protect me from what? I cried out, desperation creeping into my voice. I needed an answer, but the only response was silence. The shadows moved again and fear gripped me tight. I had to get to the stone circle. With renewed determination, I bolted for the back door, the charm burning in my hand like a lifeline. But as I reached for the handle, the whispers erupted into screams. I hesitated, fear washing over me again. Whatever was happening was pushing me to confront the darkness, and I wasn't sure if I was ready. Then I turned the handle, but the door wouldn't budge. I was trapped. I glanced back into the kitchen, the shadows flickering with malicious intent. I could feel their eyes on me, and in that moment I knew I was running out of time. I could feel the shadows closing in, their presence smothering the air around me. Panic surged again. I turned to the kitchen, my heart pounding. The whispers intensified, merging into a single voice that shrieked in frustration. "You must go to the stone. Leave me alone," I shouted back, the sound of my own voice feeling foreign against the relentless whispers. I needed clarity, not chaos, but the fear had me paralyzed. Just then, the pendant in my hand heated to an unbearable temperature. I looked down, realizing the symbol was glowing brighter, almost blinding. It wasn't just hot, it felt alive. My instincts screamed at me to drop it, but I clutched it tighter. Maybe it was my only chance. I forced myself to move, scanning the room for any escape route. My eyes darted toward the window. It was already dark outside, but I knew I had to try. I sprinted past the table, reaching for the window pane. It was locked, but with a determined shove, I pushed it up. Fresh air rushed in, mingling with my urgency. I could hear the whispers gathering strength, swirling around me like a storm. "The stone," they cried again, but I didn't have time for their demands. I had to act. Just as I pushed my torso halfway through the window, a chilling sensation gripped my legs. My heart leapt. I looked down to see darkness creeping toward me, tendrils swirling around my ankles. They pulled me back, drawing me in with a magnetic force. I fought against it, but the shadows held tight. "Stop!" I yelled, tearing my gaze from the deep abyss. My eyes caught the glowing pendant, and in that moment, something within me stirred. I felt a connection, a bond forged with the symbol against the shadows. Whoever or whatever was behind this chaos wanted me to embrace it. With a surge of will, I yanked the pendant out, holding it high. "Leave me alone," I demanded, and to my surprise, the room fell silent. The shadows hesitated, but only for a moment. Then, a low growl echoed from the kitchen, rumbling like distant thunder. I turned, dread pooling in my stomach. Something was coming. That's when I saw it. A dark shape emerged from the kitchen, sliding smoothly like smoke coiling through the air. It moved with an unnatural grace, gaining form as it moved closer. I could barely breathe as realization hit me. It was alive, and it was looking right at me. "Find the stone," the voice returned, now laced with a threatening tone. "It can free you." I leaned back, panic overwhelming my senses. Could the stone really protect me, or was it just another trap? The growling grew louder, vibrating through my bones. With nowhere to run, I felt the weight of the pendant against my palm. It was time to make a choice. Do I trust this strange object in my hand and seek out the stone? Or do I flee and face the shadows that wanted to consume me? The shadows inched ever closer, urging me onward. I could feel the darkness at my back, and I had to decide quickly. The choice loomed over me heavier than ever. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. The shadows pulsed like a living thing pressing closer. They wanted me to act, to move toward the unknown. But would that lead me to safety or simply deeper into the darkness? "Find the stone," the voice echoed again, more insistent now. I could almost see it, a shimmering orb hidden beneath layers of fear and doubt. The pendant vibrated in my hand, as if urging me to trust it, to take a step forward. I made my decision. "Okay," I whispered, channeling my courage. I shoved myself back into the room and let go of the window, moving toward the kitchen where the dark shape awaited. The growling had grown deeper, reverberating off the walls like an ominous heartbeat. With each step, the shadows slithered across the floor, extending toward me almost playfully. I could see the outline of the beast now, a massive figure with smooth edges and no discernible features, save for two glowing eyes that bore into me. "Go to the stone," it hissed, its voice seeping into my thoughts. Suddenly I felt a sickening pull, as if the shadows wanted something from me. I fought to maintain focus, forcing myself to remember that the pendant was my ally. If it really was connected to the stone, it could lead me to it. "Where's the stone?" I shouted, my voice trembling yet defiant. The shadows reacted, contracting slightly at the sound. A faint light flickered from a corner of the kitchen. I turned my head, and there it was. A small shimmer, a reflection of hope in the dark. Could that be it? Without thinking, I charged for the light. The growling turned fierce, a warning that felt like icy breath on my neck. The darkness stretched, trying to ensnare me once again, but I raced past, fueled by adrenaline. As I neared the shimmer, it grew brighter. My heart raced. Was it a mirage? But no, as I came closer, I saw the outline of a pedestal, and atop it, embedded in rough stone, was the stone itself. It was small and unassuming, a dull gray color with veins of silver running through it. I reached out for it, and just as my fingers brushed the surface, a deafening growl erupted from behind me. I turned, heart pounding, but this time the creature was no longer an unfocused shadow. It took the form of a monstrous wolf, its dark fur rippling with shadows that twisted and curled like smoke. It stood tall, teeth bared, blocking my only path back. "Leave," it bellowed. "You cannot have the stone." With fear surging through me, I grasped the stone. A pulse of energy shot through me, a connection both terrifying and exhilarating. I felt a wave of warmth spread from the pendant to the stone, sending vibrant light cascading around me. The shadows flinched, drawing back. But the creature was not done. It lunged forward, moving so quickly I barely had time to react. I raised the stone, ready to defend myself. The whispers surged once more, now a chorus of strained voices urging me to use it. "Now," they all cried, "release the power." As I braced for impact, the room shook. The air vibrated, and a brilliant light erupted from the stone in my hand. I had no idea how to control it, but I had to try. "I'm not running anymore," I yelled, meeting the wolf's eyes with defiance. It was time to take a stand. But just as the light enveloped me, a chilling realization hit. I didn't know what would happen next. Would this burst of power protect me, or would it break the fragile line between us and the dark? The light surged around me, a vortex of brilliant energy that pushed back the terror of the wolf. I felt the warmth envelop me, but it didn't come without its price. The shadows recoiled, yet I could sense their rage mounting. Each second ticked by like a heartbeat in a total void. I had one chance, and I had to make it count. I focused on the stone, feeling the connection deepening. "What do I do?" I called out, but the only response was a symphony of whispers resounding in my head. It was a cacophony of voices urging me to tap into their power, to weave together the strands of my fear, hope, and desperation. With all my might, I summoned the energy in the stone. I felt it responding to my fears, morphing with my thoughts. Fear was replaced by determination. It lit a path within me, illuminating the dark corners of my soul where dread had taken root. "Get back!" I yelled, not just to the wolf but to the shadows weaving around me. The creature hesitated, its eyes narrowing. The light flared brighter, forcing it to take a step back, but I knew it wouldn't hold forever. Drawing on every ounce of courage, I cried, "I'm not your prey." Suddenly, the air exploded with light, a brilliant wave slashing through the darkness. The shadows recoiled, dissipating in wisps like smoke meeting an open flame. The wolf snarled, its form flickering between that of a menacing beast and a distorted shadow. Then, amidst the chaotic splendor, the light honed in on the wolf, illuminating it as if by some divine intervention. It lunged again, but this time it was met by a barrier of shining energy. I could hear it howl in fury, a raw sound that echoed throughout the kitchen, ricocheting off the walls and vibrating in my chest. "Stop," I commanded, forcing my will into the light. The very walls seemed to resonate with my authority, as if acknowledging my right to be there, to take control. I had battled fear and monsters both inside and out, and now I was reclaiming my ground. The stone pulsed once more, radiating an energy beyond my comprehension. It ignited something deep inside me, a protective instinct entwined with raw power and resilience. The shadows pinched together into a thin line, the wolf snarled one last time, and then pulsing light erupted from the stone in a beam that erupted into every corner of the room. The wolf, weakened by its own rage, finally disintegrated into the very shadows from which it had come, flickers of dark dissipating into the air, leaving nothing but silence in its wake. As the energy of the light receded, the remnants of the haunting darkness melted away, and I found myself heaving, staring at the now empty room. I was alive. Shaking but alive, but the world outside still felt heavy. I glanced at the wooden door, my heart racing at the thought of perhaps not being quite finished yet. Yes, I had defeated whatever darkness had invaded my home, but what about the lingering questions that hung like shadows waiting to corrupt? How could I know the difference between reality and the echoes of terror which might have followed me? I stumbled back, clutching the stone tightly, my grip not letting go of the power within. I had faced the shadow of my fears tonight, but something deep inside urged me that my battle was only just beginning. The whispers faded, but they left a warning, a reminder. You can never escape. And deep down, I began to understand. The darkness was not merely a force outside of me, it was a part of those woods and a part of who I was now. Would this be my burden to carry, or a power I could learn to wield? I stood there, panting in the dim light of my once safe kitchen, half expecting the shadows to reform, but as the runes on the stone throbbed gently in my hand, I felt a strange sense of balance. It wasn't over, but it was the beginning of a different kind of fight, one where I would learn to navigate the line between light and darkness, searching for my own kind of truth. I moved toward the window, wary of the world outside, but determined to confront whatever remained lurking beyond the veil. Maybe, just maybe, I could turn this journey to my advantage, or at least find a way to coexist with the shadows that would always be a part of my life. As the moon illuminated the remnants of the dark, I whispered into the night, knowing that the woods would never let me forget. I will find you. I was ready to face the truth, no matter where it led me next.